Hello and welcome to our special coverage of the BJP's poll manifesto. After much delay, the BJP finally released its election agenda. The 42-page document dubs the UPA's 10-year rule as a lost decade, vows to get India back on the high growth path, taming inflation, creating jobs, top the BJP's agenda. Other key highlights is the party's reiteration of its opposition to FDI and multi-brand retail, even though it says it favours FDI in other sectors. On the tax reform front, the party promises to simplify the tax regime, but the manifesto is largely silent on two major issues, the GST and the DTC. To discuss the BJP's poll promises, I have with me Salman Aniso, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Samiran Chakrabarti, head of research at Standard Chartered Bank. Also joining us, Sudhir Kapadia, national tax leader at EY, Mohandas Pai, chairman of Manipal Global Education, Sanjay Dutt, director of Quantum Securities, Vinayak Chatterjee, chairman of Feedback Infrastructure. Also joining us, Piyush Goyal, National Treasurer of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He will join us in just a minute from now. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Mohandas Pai, let me start by asking you what you made of the 42-page document that was put out by the BJP today. Would you say that the document, in a sense, signals a shift within the BJP, development, economy, get pride of place, issues like Article 370, the Ram Temple, have made it to the last page of the BJP's document? So, in a sense, do you believe that the biggest acknowledgement of this manifesto is a reorientation or a reaffirmation of the reorientation of the Bharatiya Janata Party?
Well, the manifesto demonstrates a tussle between the old conservative faction and a group which wants to modernize and bring it in tune with India's reality and the aspirations of young people. So you'll see that the opening page talks about India's glorious heritage, 5,000-year-old history, a lot of mumbo-jumbo, which nobody believes in anyway. And then, of course, they talk about 370 and the Ram Temple and a couple of uniform civil code, which has been part of their manifesto for long. But if you remove these things, I think the rest of the entire manifesto is forward-looking. A lot of principles have been laid out. A lot of statements have been made about how to run the, how they will run the government if elected to power. Short on details, short on targets, but overall a very broad scope and a very, very, modern way of expressing what they want to the economy, which is inclusive and something in it for everybody. But it lacks specific details, unlike the Congress manifesto, which is extremely detail-oriented. But one good thing is we can be rest assured that there are not many giveaways in the BJP manifesto, unlike the Congress. So the giveaways are very less. They're broad principles. So I guess is a much better in terms of its fiscal conservativeness than other political parties.
Okay, let me take that point of fiscal conservatism forward with Samiran Chakrabarti. Samiran Chakrabarti, the BJP has said that they intend to bring the economy back to a path of fiscal prudence, to move away from fiscal profligacy. They have stopped short of giving out a fiscal deficit target. They talk about reforming banks. They talk about controlling NPAs. They talk about bringing in a regulatory body to monitor NPAs. What, to your mind, has been the highlight there as far as fiscal prudence and fiscal profligacy is concerned? Because the manifesto on all 42 pages have been absolutely silent on the issue of subsidies.
Yes, if you look at it, there is a kind of a hint that the tax rates could be moderated. So to that extent, the revenue collection might be lower. The manifesto is somewhat silent on the divestment, so it's not clear that where exactly the additional revenues are going to come from. But if you put these revenue side equations back into the fiscal equation, then what you get is that obviously subsidies will have to be cut significantly. And there what the manifesto promises is better targeting of subsidies, which at a broader level is something which everybody wants to achieve, but in practice how it will be achieved is yet to be seen. But what really strikes me as the most important part of this manifesto is how BJP is looking towards a much better center-state coalition to be formed, which can have a very significant bearing on the finances of both the center as well as the states.
Would you say that, to your mind, is the big highlight or the big idea as far as this manifesto is concerned, Samiran? This is something that Narendra Modi has spoken about often in his rallies. Today, the manifesto talks about setting up regional state councils that will ensure better facilitation of center-state relationships. So, in that sense, reforming the federal structure. Would you say that this, to your mind, is the big highlight of this manifesto?
Absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind that if this can be done, then the potential growth rate of this country can be increased manifold. But at the same time, we must acknowledge the challenges. The challenge is that 19 out of 28 states today is run by non-NDA governments. So clearly there will be political opposition to every such move to integrate the economy. But in my view as an economist, I would definitely welcome such a step.
Sudhir Kapadia, Samiran was talking about tax, and as Mohandas Pai has also pointed out, very short in specifics in terms of revenue mobilization. I want to get your comments on what the manifesto states as far as the GST is concerned. Unlike the Congress, and we can quibble about, the Congress making promises that it didn't keep, but the GST, there is no timeline given for the GST, and the Direct Taxes Code finds no mention whatsoever as far as this manifesto is concerned. Your quick reaction on both those two ambitious tax reforms before I move forward.
Well, I think on the GST, in my view, it is realistic not to put a timeline given whatever has happened and the point Samiran made about the different political parties ruling the states. I think as long as the intent is there and we see execution, whichever party comes to power, that would be welcomed. Promising GST within a short number of days, I think, is unrealistic. On the DTC, my personal view is that the whole precursor of the DTC was the Kelkar Committee report way back in 2003, which talked about lowering tax rates and increasing the tax base, and removing unnecessary exemptions. If you keep these three pillars in mind, you can call it whatever, you can call it DTC, you can call it some other name. But I think any government of the day should seriously look at these three very cardinal principles which Kelkar had laid out, and I think we'll be much better off, in that sense. Now, one last point I will make is this is the first time I have come across the term tax terrorism. Very strong words used there. But all I will say is that what is gratifying to note, whether it is the Congress, whether it is the BJP, that tax policy finds a very prominent mention in election manifestos. I could be wrong, but I've never seen tax policy occupy such a prominent place. So it's really causing a lot of heartburn. There's no doubt about it, and that's why it is being paid so much attention. So it's really causing a lot of heartburn. There's no doubt about it, and that's why it is being paid so much attention.
But the course correction from what they call is the tax terrorism environment that they believe the UPA has unleashed on investors, absolutely silent on whether or not they intend to course correct the retrospective tax, bring in any kind of amendment. They do, of course, promise a non-adversarial and more conducive tax environment. Were you really expecting them to say anything on the retrospective tax?
No, I think absolutely that's a very important point. In my view, again, if the BJP were to come to power and if they were to really act on this one little thing, which seems very little to everyone at the macro level, but this retrospective amendment, which by the way, I think I've read and heard Mr. Arun Jaitley speak a lot about. If they really were to do something about it, remove that retrospective amendment, mind you, you have an expert committee report appointed by the current government, Dr. Shom, who has categorically stated that these retrospective amendments are bad. So you have an expert opinion on it. And I think if there's one signal which you need to give to investors in India, both foreign and domestic, this one move will go a long way in improving credibility.
Okay, I'll come back to you on that issue, but Vinayak Chatterjee, let me come to you and talk to you about the promises made on the infrastructure side. The BJP talks about urban, he talks about rural rejuvenation, also talks about urban upliftment, 100 new cities, building quality integrated public transport systems, discouraging the use of private vehicles, the freight corridors, modernizing ports and so on and so forth. Massive low-cost housing scheme will be unveiled if the BJP were to come to power. How much would you give them as far as the infrastructure promises are concerned?
Shireen, on a lighter note, they have already added 33% to the PPP program. As you would have read, they have added another P. So we now have, in future, on your programs, you will have to call it PPPP, because they have added in the manifesto people to PPP. So that's a 33% addition to the PPP program. From the private sector, we welcome that. And in terms of the manifesto, there are some very good ideas. I think the taking on from Mr. Vajpayee's Bharat Joro Golden Quadrilateral Program, we now have the Diamond Quadrilateral. I suppose the Diamond includes Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Kolkata, as well as north, south, east, west. That makes it a diamond. So we're going to have bullet trains running across the length and breadth of the country, connecting the 4 metros in a diamond formation. I think that will certainly fire the public imagination, and it is a good idea. There is substantive emphasis on rail. They're talking about agri-rail for perishable commodities. There is an emphasis on roads on J&K, border areas, and the northeast, which is welcome. I also like the idea of the National Land Use Authority. It's something you will realize I have been on your channel advocating.
You preempted my question, Vinayak, because that's exactly what I was going to ask you, that as far as the land acquisition policy is concerned, the BJP in its manifesto is now promising a national land use policy and a national authority to monitor the national land use policy. Give me your thoughts on that.
No, it is not in contravention of the Land Act, because, you know, the Land Act was passed in Parliament. BJP was part of passing it. I think something that, you know, you will recall, I have been advocating on your channel for many years now as a land bank corporation. It is close to that idea which says to effectively implement the, to make available land for economic, institutional and industrial activity, it is important for the center and the states to actually have an authority that takes in its fold unutilized land from the government, that gives planning permission, that does town and country planning, etc. So it's a very good and powerful idea. I wish it luck. But I will tell you the area where I'm disappointed is that that the section on the section on power is one of the smallest sections in the manifesto. It is less than half a page, about 1/3 of a page, and broadly, other than a lot of English, all that it says is that the BJP will have a creative national energy policy, and I thought that was one of the weakest links in the infrastructure chain so far as the manifesto is concerned. But well, I suppose some of the other ideas make up for it. The 100 cities is, I think, too visionary to be practical, so we can let that pass. You know, some of the other issues are well in keeping with what one was expecting. It is, as you rightly mentioned, they have taken
largely in line with expectations.
Largely in line with expectations.
I'll come
power
back to
a
you
weak
in
area.
just a second. Power a weak area. I'll come back to you in just a second. Let me very quickly bring in Sanjay Dutt to get in a market perspective. Sanjay, the markets were waiting for this document to get a sense of just how reformist or how aggressive on reforms the BJP is going to be. What is going to be the big takeaway from a market point of view as far as this document is concerned?
Shireen, of course, statutory disclaimer, as it is important for us as brokers, and I'm being a very small broker. Long Modi, aggressively short the manifesto. I think Mr. Modi will do much more than what is in the manifesto, because what we need is execution. These 42 pages are quite a disaster, barring, of course, what Samiran correctly said.
Why would you say the 42 pages are a disaster, Sanjay? Why would you say the 42 pages are a disaster?
Starting from page 1, about what Mr. Mohan Bada's Pai correctly said, Gyan from Andalausi to going to the bovines and the National Cattle Development Board, to a national land authority, Organic Farming and Fertilizer Corporation of India, Kisan TV channels, a workers' bank, then we come to what is immediate in our precedence is, employment exchanges, special courts for black marketing.
Is the market going to be disappointed? Is the market going to be disappointed with the fact that they don't talk about divestment, they don't talk about denationalizing the coal sector, they don't talk about privatization at all in this 42-page document? Do you believe that the market is going to be disappointed with that? Or do you really expect that sort of stuff, which is controversial and sensitive, to be part of a document?
Exactly, that's exactly what the market is going to believe in. What I said in the beginning, and I started with, it's just one line. That's long, Modi and short the manifesto. Because the manifesto has no meaning whatsoever. We all clearly believe in the market that Mr. Modi, if he comes to power with a good majority, with good numbers as is being projected, he's going to deliver what is required to revive the sentiment, to revive, industry, and actually get down to execution with his team. And what Mr. Pai correctly pointed out, this manifesto is a contradiction between the old guard and the new thinking that is there and evolving in the BJP. So, for me, the manifesto is a disappointment completely. We again got so much of bureaucratic stuff in it. We're going to have at least about 20 new authorities and more government authorities being created out of this manifesto if it actually is implemented. And what Vinayak correctly said, 100 more cities. Can we just set right the existing 100 we have first? That will be enough for all of us.
Point taken, Sanjay. I'll come back.
Implemented. And what Vinayak correctly said, 100 more cities. Can we just set right the existing 100 we have first? That will be enough for all of us.
Point taken, Sanjay. I'll come back. I will come back to you. I need to get into a break, but before that I want to get a quick comment from Piyush Goyal. Piyush Goyal, I gave you the benefit of listening to the comments that have come in from various experts who are looking at their individual fields and what the manifesto has had to say on that front. My first question to you before I take a break and then come back and continue my conversation with you. As far as FDI and multi-brand retail is concerned, there were no surprises. The BJP has made it stand very clear that you oppose FDI and multi-brand retail. Can you specifically tell me that if you were to come to power, will you overturn the UPA's decision and will you do it retrospectively? What happens to the guys who've already put in money or have committed to putting in money into India? What happens to the likes of Tesco? Will you overturn the decision, and if you do so, will it be retrospective?
Shireen, I think I have been on your channel before and with you before, where I've categorically told you that we are against FDI in multi-brand retail. Certainly it is the prerogative of any government to change policy, and my party stands committed to change the policy on allowing FDI in multi-brand retail. I have also very loud and clear publicly said that we will not change any policy without grandfathering the past. In this particular case, it's only rhetorical or it's only hypothetical, since no money has come into India under a lopsided policy, a policy which did not have the support of the people of India, a policy which was passed by manipulating Parliament and manipulating certain parties in Parliament.
I'm heading into a break.
So very categorically, we will change.
Will you grandfather and will you overturn the decision retrospectively?
Well, I categorically said that it is hypothetical because no investment has come in. So whether
commitment. There is an agreement. There is an agreement with Tesco and the Tatas. There is an agreement with Tesco and Tatas, Mr. Goyal.
Nobody has got any approvals to start business in any particular state.
They have got the approvals from the FIPB. They have got the approvals from the central government.
There has been no investment which has happened in India under this policy, which is completely flawed in the first place. And wherever we will need to change policy, I think the government will have to change policy. And wherever there is any investment of the past, it can always be grandfathered.
All right, on that note, I'm going to take a quick commercial break and resume this conversation as we discuss threadbare the BJP's vision document as far as the promises it makes to the electorate for election 2014. Welcome back. You're watching our special discussion as we decode the BJP's manifesto. Piyush Goyal, coming back to you, you have in your manifesto talked about simplifying the tax regime, of presenting a non-adversarial, more conducive tax environment. Some would have thought that if you had made a signal towards actually bringing in any kind of amendments to address or course correct the retrospective tax issue, that would have been a huge positive, a huge signal, especially as far as investors are concerned. Are you considering to move down that road if the BJP were to be voted to power? Is that a consideration at all? Why have you fallen short of that in your manifesto?
Reena, I'll answer that, but I just want to correct the perspective that some of your panelists had. One of your panelists was very liberally criticizing the manifesto on the power sector. I suspect he was not able to understand the enormity of what we have said on energy security. particularly in terms of the role of renewable energy, particularly in terms of the role of enhancing the coal supply, so that the 60,000-70,000 megawatt of power plants which are starved of adequate coal would come into production and meet the power needs of India, particularly in regard to the exploration of oil, gas requirements, which will help us to meet the gas requirements of the country. So I think there's a lot said in this, and of course Mr. Modi has a track record of what he did in Gujarat, where production or generation of electricity trebled, where power cost did not increase in the last 12 years very significantly, where you have 24/7 power for all, which is a commitment in the manifesto if somebody would have read it carefully, and the fact that Mr. Modi was able to curtail power theft, Mr. Modi was able to send separate distribution lines to different users.
We are aware of the state of power in Gujarat, sir.
And the fact that his utilities have converted from a loss of 2,500 crores to a profit today. As regards the 100 new cities, 1 minute.
I take your point on board, Mr. Goyal. I'll come back to those issues.
May I come in, Shri?
Just 1 second. I'll get
Vinay. Agenda. We know exactly how we are going to create new satellite towns and twin cities. We know exactly the needs of urbanization in India, which needs to go back to the drawing board and create new cities. And I don't think it is, as one of your panelists said, difficult or impossible or not even worth discussing. I am willing to engage in any discussion on how that is a doable, practical agenda. As regards
all right, Piyush Goyal, that was a very clever Pele pass on my question as far as retrospective tax goes. I'll come back to that in just a second. I'll come back to that in just a second. But let Vinayak Chatterjee respond to what you've just said. Vinay, go ahead.
Two quick responses. One is, this discussion is about the BJP manifesto. It is not about the power sector in Gujarat. The second point is that I have very carefully read that very short paragraph on power. It is full of motherhood statements of renewable and make everything available. Very short on any practical idea, and it seeks an escape route by saying we will have a new energy policy. I rest my case.
All right.
Yeah, I would like to add that Mr. Modi does not need long paragraphs or long pages. It's his track record which the people have seen.
Mr. Modi may not need it, sir. Mr. Modi may not need it, but the manifesto is supposed to articulate your intent.
I think it's the outcome which matters, not the number of lines that are used in the manifesto.
All right, Piyush Goyal, now answer my question as far as retrospective tax is concerned and whether or not the BJP is going to move forward to course correct in any fashion.
Well, I'm sure the new finance minister of the government, which will be sworn in May, will be seized of this problem. We will need to have adequate data. In fact, in the Standing Committee of Finance, we kept arguing the case to get more data and understand what the government hoped to do by this extremely abhorrible step that this Congress government had done. They have actually killed the investment climate in India. With
we know that, sir. That's exactly the point. The case for why it is bad has been made several times over, including by you. You call it tax terrorism. I'm asking you a simple question. If the BJP were to come to power, will you do anything to course correct that, sir?
Well, I'm sure we'll have to leave it to the new finance minister to study what this government has done and find a solution to all the mess that they have left behind. Not only in retrospective taxation, but the way they have messed around with transfer pricing, the way they have harassed taxpayers, both international and Indian, in the last 10 years, the way they have created a whole set of judicial complicated cases which has disincentivized investors, both domestic and foreign.
That's another.
I think the new finance minister will have to take a comprehensive view and find another effective
Pele pass there, Piyush Goyal. Salman Soz, I know you've been waiting. I don't want this to become a political tutu meme between you and Piyush Goyal, but very quickly, go ahead with your first thoughts.
Thank you, Shireen. First of all, congratulations for putting together such an eminent panel, but you needn't have, because frankly the BJP and Mr. Modi have not really taken this manifesto exercise very seriously. It just shows by putting together a PowerPoint presentation and delivering it on the day of the election when people had already started voting. So it's a very disappointing thing, by the way. I really suspect that this whole thing, this presentation was put together in the last 10 days or so. It is devoid of any specifics. It is pretty much a copy-paste job from the Congress Party. I mean, if you look at the content, and it is necessarily so, they have to follow the UPA's policies largely because there is no real path besides that for this country. Now, I do, one of your speakers said, one of your panelists said correctly, there's a lot of English in here. P. Now we're going to have a people, public, private partnership. I've worked on these things. There's public-private partnership. You can have as many people as you want, but that's what it is. Urban, rural, and urban, we're already seeing that kind of transformation in this country. We talked about, in our manifesto, if you remember, we talked about 100
So you're saying,
clusters,
Salman, so effectively, you're saying if you remove the BJP logo. Yes, go ahead.
No, just Shireen, yes. No, look, I mean, by the way, you know how big BJP's presence is on social media, and yet copycat manifestos are actually trending above BJP manifesto. The reason is people at large are saying that this is the copycat manifesto. But forget all that. Having a presentation, Mr. Modi may not really need more than 4 lines on the energy sector. But the people of India deserve to know in greater detail as to what this party wants to do. I've been working, and Piyushji is a very senior person. I've been in debates with him. I've been following the BJP's progress very closely. And I thought, once the manifesto comes out, we'll know a lot more. There is nothing in this manifesto in terms of detail of how they're going to do what they're going to do. We know what they're going to do with their broad principles. But if you look at the Congress's,
your point is that it's short on the how to.
On retro.
Your point is that it's short on the how to.
No, and look at retroactive taxation. By the way, the Congress has recognized what has happened, and we have put in this clause specifically in our manifesto. And by the way, this whole issue of we look into FDI multi-brand retail, FDI and multi-brand retail, and we'll reverse that policy because nothing has happened so far. It is going to be very dangerous. It's creating a lot of uncertainty in investors. And then they talk about investor sentiment. I'm sorry, I think that is totally wrong.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point for me to take another quick commercial break. But gentlemen, hang in there. Piyush Goyal, I know you want to get a chance to respond. I'm going to bring you in, but we are going to have to take a quick commercial break here and be right back with you. Welcome back. You're watching the special discussion on election exchange as we decode the BJP's manifesto. Piyush Goyal, back to you. You talk about how the BJP will stand for FDI in other sectors outside of multi-brand retail. What about things like FDI in insurance? What about FDI in pension? Find no mention as far as the BJP's manifesto is concerned. Could you respond to that, please?
Well, Shireen, I think first of all, we have said very categorically that FDI should be on the basis of public interest. It should be to encourage manufacturing, job creation. It should be infrastructure oriented. As regards insurance and pension and defense, we have very categorically said defense, we believe should be encouraged. We need to expand domestic manufacturing facilities in defense. On insurance, our stand has been made loud and clear more than one occasion on your channel also. We believe additional investment, if it comes into the insurance sector at the right valuation, it is welcome. What this government had tried to bring into India was just to legitimize certain acts of insurance companies which are outside the ambit of law. We are not willing to be party to those type of actions.
Will you consider?
We were also telling very categorically.
Will you consider upping the insurance limit to 49%? Will you consider upping FDI and insurance to 49%, which you've been opposing so far?
We have never opposed it per se, Shireen. On so many times I've answered on your channel the right valuation and additional inflow of capital. I don't know what was the objection of the Congress. Did they have a vested agenda that they did not actually want fresh FDI, or did they want to sell India cheap? I don't know what their interest was. My focus always has been get the right valuation in place, get the embedded value for insurance companies, get additional FDI to come in, and don't just correct the past transactions. You are well aware of what I mean by that. By the way, just to set the record straight for your viewers, pension is a management affair. It needs 25 crores to set up a pension management company. I told the Honorable Finance Minister, why are you increasing FDI in pension funds? It needs 25 crores to set up a pension fund manager. So are you fighting for pension fund management companies to get out of Indian control when you need only 25 crores to set it up?
So your answer to pension is no. So your answer to FDI and pension is no. So your answer to FDI and pension is no.
My answer is we have to assess what is in national interest and take an appropriate decision when we come into power. By the way, another of the arguments of Salman Soz was about the manifesto not giving specificity.
No, don't get into the arguments of Salman Soz. Piyush Goyal, don't get into the arguments that Salman Soz is making. Let's come back to the questions that I'm asking you.
And aims. Shireen,
let's come back to the questions I'm asking you, sir.
Public declaration of policy and aims. It doesn't have to lay out a budget document. So I suggest that he should go back to the drawing board of how manifestos reflect guiding principles by which a new government has to come.
Let's leave that aside. I want to very quickly, before I get the other panelists in, get a specific comment from you on one of the promises that you make in your manifesto, which is to undertake banking reforms to enhance ease, access and accountability. Will this also include bringing down the government shareholding in public sector banks?
Well, I think we have to differentiate between ownership and management. In the private sector too, we have very clearly professionally managed companies which are successfully run without an ownership control. The bigger issue today is to give autonomy to the banks. The bigger issue is to get the finance minister not to, or the finance department not to micromanage these banks. I think Gujarat in that respect has shown the role model.
That's a no.
That without
so Piyush Goyal, implicit in what you're saying, implicit in what you're saying is no to bringing down government shareholding in public sector banks.
I am saying we will focus on the outcome and not focus on the shareholding. Our effort is to get better banks' performance. It is immaterial whether the shareholding is 33 or 51 or 74. The important thing is their profitability, the honesty of their operation, efficiency of their operation, the reach and spread, so that financial inclusion reaches the last man on the street.
So by that same logic, is divestment going to be a priority for the BJP? And are you going to, in this term, if you do come to power, consider privatization at all? Because that is something that the NDA did take forward.
Well, if you will recall, the NDA focused on loss-making units and was actually able to not only generate resources for the government, but also in a way convert all those loss-making units into national jewels.
Will you continue with that? Because the manifesto is silent. Will you continue with that? Because the manifesto is silent, sir. Will you continue with that?
Our approach is that public sector units should all get profitable. Just like in Gujarat, we were able to convert losses of PSUs into profit. Our focus will be on how to curtail the 27,000 crores of losses that the PSU undertakings are doing under the Congress. Our effort will be at the earliest. Whatever will be the mechanism the new government will work out. But we assure the nation that the losses of PSUs will be curtailed under Mr. Modi's regime, and he has a track record to prove that.
Okay, I'll come back to you in just a second. Sanjay Dutt, you had a comment to make. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask Mr. Goyal that on the FDI issue he mentioned, because if I read the manifesto on page 27, which deals with the FDI, we are saying that the party has a qualified stand in FDI in the sense that it's only going to be specialized sectors, industries, and the ones where job creation happens. which means that you categorically rule out everything else? Are you going to specify, as far as the FIPB board is concerned, where FDI is going to be welcome and not going to be welcome? Are we going to say that, retail is not welcome, or these 5 areas are not welcome, everything else is going to be welcome? Are we going to say that, retail is not welcome, or these 5 areas are not welcome, everything else is welcome?
I think he answered that. Piyush, very quickly.
Well, I think if the same gentleman reads the third line, BJP is committed to protecting the interests of small and medium retailers, SMEs and the people employed by them. I think our effort is that we should create more jobs and not lose jobs through FDI. Our effort is that FDI brings in technology, brings in manufacturing into India, it helps us develop our infrastructure, our utilities, power, gas, oil, coal production. I don't think FDI is the bigger issue. The bigger issue is economic growth. The bigger issue is how can we get jobs for the youth of India. FDI can at best help us to supplement the investment activity. Unfortunately for some people in the markets and for some people in the Congress, FDI is the end of everything. So they believe that if FDI
comes in or FII invests in the market, let me correct you there. Let me correct you. So let me correct you there. My point here is that I'm not saying that only way to have growth is through FDI. The problem that we face in our country is that we are a capital-starved country. We're dealing with substantial bank NPAs. We need some immediate action as to fresh investments coming in. And the only way we think, and which you will also probably agree, a fastest way would be is to encourage foreign investors. Yes, agree with you, in the right sectors to come in, which create jobs, which help domestic population. But the important issue here is that we cannot really differentiate. We are actually a capital-starved country. We all have to agree.
Sure.
And we're dealing with bank NPAs at this point of time.
Just to answer Mr. Sanjay, the fact of life is even when Mr. Obama came to India, the only thing he focused on was 50,000 jobs he was taking back to America. I think the investment requirements of India can well be met without selling India cheap. The NPAs are not because FDI did not come in. The NPAs are because of the bad policies of the Congress. Please ask this question to the Congress.
This conversation will continue. Let me move on now.
The policy right. We will set the investor confidence right. I don't think FDI is the issue. Investor confidence in India is the issue.
Mohandas Pai, I want to pick up on this point of investor confidence and the BJP manifesto talking about restoring confidence in India, improving the investor climate. And here is the BJP saying that they will do a U-turn as far as the multi-brand decision is concerned, and it doesn't matter if the money has come in or it hasn't come in. But after we've seen a debacle with the retrospective tax issue, a U-turn on multi-brand retail, what kind of message, what kind of signals is it going to send out?
I'm sorry, Shireen, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is not a U-turn. This is stated.
It is a U-turn. It is a stated. But it is a stated government decision, sir. It is a stated government decision today, Mr. Goyal. Mr. Goyal, it is a stated government decision. Mohandas Pai, go ahead.
Choosing institutions of integrity. It is not a U-turn, and I told you
the message.
Mohandas Pai, go ahead.
Shireen.
Yes.
Shireen, the message that is going out, is here is a party that is coming in which wants to do certain things. Be wary of them, be careful of them, don't trust them fully because they want to reverse an existing policy is almost as bad as the retrospective amendment of taxes. If a prior government has come out with a policy, you need to stick to it and you should not reverse it. You should not put people back. Then people lose trust in you. What is the difference between amending the law retrospectively and going back on a policy of the government which has been there previously? Both are almost the same, and the message you're sending out very clearly is that look, we will do what we want, you come in on our terms or don't come. So if you do that, we're not going to get much of investments coming in, and if you waste 2 years of your 5-year term waiting for investment to come in and trying to earn the trust of overseas investors, you lost 2 years. So I think what they're doing is pretty bad. And also, Shireen, I don't understand what is the difference between FDI in retail versus investment by Indian large houses. You need to protect the consumers. The Indian large houses in retail are doing exactly to the small retailer what a Walmart will do. What is the difference between the two? I don't see any difference.
Yeah, Piyush Goyal, I'll get you to respond to what Mohandas Pai is saying in just a second, but I know Sudhir Kapadia also wants to come in as far as this business of U-turn and the investor confidence. Sudhir Kapadia, add to what Mohandas Pai is saying before I take this conversation back to Piyush Goyal.
No, I think I will just make 2 points, one on the retrospective amendment and then on the FDI policy. I think as the BJP has also accepted the fact that any policy which is seen as a U-turn will be very detrimental to foreign investments. That's point number one. And on the retrospective amendment, we at least have the views, as I mentioned earlier, of Mr. Arun Jaitley. If I recollect, he has been very categorical that if taxes have not been collected in the light of a particular law or retrospective, then there is no need for a retrospective amendment. So if I were to take that logically forward, on the indirect transfer, to my mind, taxes have not been collected for any of the cases because of the Supreme Court's decision and the administrative decision not to or to keep the taxes in abeyance. So to my mind, the BJP should have no difficulty in bringing about resigning the retrospective amendment as per their own stated policy by one of their senior functionaries. So I think that is on retrospective amendment. They have a golden opportunity to resign it, as I said. As far as FDI is concerned, all I will say is that any government should make it very clear right up front what they are going to allow, what they are not going to allow. That clarity and certainty should be there. Whether the policy is right, wrong, there will always be shades of opinion. I can't comment on that. All that foreign investors look for is certainty right from the word go. Be shades of opinion, I can't comment on that. All that foreign investors look for is certainty right from the word go.
Piyush Goyal, you have a golden opportunity. You can rescind the retrospective tax, and if you actually go forward with doing a U-turn as far as multi-brand retail is concerned, you will only enhance the crisis of confidence with regards to the India story.
Well, my need of the hour is for the poor man on the street, for the self-employed small retailer to be protected.
But answer Mohandas Pai's point, Mr. Goyal. How does organized domestic retail not impact the Aam Aadmi, not impact the small and medium entrepreneur? How does organized domestic retail not impact them?
So may I answer it?
Go ahead.
Yes, if you don't interrupt me, I'll be able to answer it. I very categorically said that multi-brand retail has not come into India. FDI has not come in so far. There is no question of changing policy retrospectively. Our change in policy will be prospective. We will grandfather the past. But there is no question of continuing with this policy in the future. The BJP was clear from the beginning. We have seen what the Walmarts of the world have done to manufacturing in America and other parts of the world. The large companies buy large volumes for their international operations. Indian manufacturing has not yet had a chance to really become competitive. Our infrastructure is lacking. We don't have manufacturing to scale. Labor is a big issue here.
You built the case. Sure, you built the case for FDI.
Let me complete. Madam, please let me complete. So what Mohandas does not recognize is that domestic investment, even in multi-brand retail, sources domestically, whereas the Walmarts are not even willing to source 30% domestically. I think the important thing is we want domestic manufacturing to survive.
Let's not be economical with the facts, sir. Let's not be economical with the fact. 30% sourcing is mandatory as per the notification.
Shireen,
it is mandatory as per the notification, Mr. Goyal. But let me move aside from FDI and retail, because that is a conversation that will continue. I want to ask you on another matter that the manifesto is silent, but we've had this conversation. As far as the issue of subsidies is concerned, better targeting of subsidies for certain. But what happens to fuel subsidies, Mr. Goyal? What is the BJP's position going to be as far as diesel decontrol is concerned, market-aligned petrol prices? Will there be any reconsideration of what this government-stated position is on these matters?
Well, you are very much aware that under Mr. Vajpayee, the BJP had completely gone away with the regulated price mechanism, and we had let petrol and diesel prices move with the market. So we had almost 27 or 28 price increases, some price reductions during our regime, and we had brought prices to market level. Unfortunately, because the Congress was supported by the left for the first 4 years and then by Trinamool Congress for the next 4 years, they brought in regulation. They actually created a situation where subsidies kept rising and the prices were kept artificially low.
I know the past, sir, so will you continue with the decontrol process?
No, it's very important to know the perspective. Now, at one shot when they try to rectify the market in an inflationary, well, I mean, you can choose to interrupt, then I can't answer. In an inflationary situation, when they try to set it right by massive increases at one time, it doesn't work. So it will need a longer term perspective. The people of India are already troubled by very high prices. We will first need to tame inflation. We will need to make sure that the people have an income which can give them sustenance and gradually bring about a price correction to the right level. I don't think such drastic actions can happen overnight. The affirmative action in terms of subsidies will continue and will continue to be set right by improving the leakages in the system and by empowering people with more income.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would like a specific answer because, you know, what you're saying right now is that you, in a sense, if you do come to power, till the inflation scenario improves, you are going to put a hold on decontrolling diesel prices any further?
Well, I just mentioned to you, we do not change the present system, but the present system includes subsidies, and those subsidies can only be tapered off in a gradual fashion. And the people of India first want relief from inflation. They are not looking at further inflation on them when Mr. Modi becomes the Prime Minister. So our first effort, and we have very much highlighted inflation and price rise to be the first attack before we get down to trying to set right the subsidy burden. Inflation and price rise to be the first attack before we get down to trying to set right the subsidy burden.
All right, let me start getting wrap-up comments from my panel. Salman Soz, please don't make this into a political slugfest. I'm going to start with wrap-up comments from you.
Shireen, I've hardly had an opportunity. I know this was BJP's day today, but you know, still. The fact of the matter is that you can see it as objectively as possible, but you know, I thought that when the day it would come and BJP would release a manifesto, they would probably, given how their campaign was running, they might actually really do well with it. But I think even BJP supporters in the business community must be really disappointed with the ham-handed way they've gone about putting together this PowerPoint deck. I'm completely, you know, I'm shocked. You know, in some ways it pleases me, but you know, short on detail. You know, somebody used the term motherhood and apple pie. That's exactly what it seems like. You know, borrowed ideas. I mean, did they really need? I mean, frankly, why even bother when Mr. Goyal himself says that Mr. Modi doesn't need? You know, he just needs 3-4 lines. He doesn't really need. He has everything in his mind.
All right.
If he has everything in his mind, we as Indian citizens have a right to know the details of how you're going to do things. And by the way,
you should be pleased, Salman, so you should be pleased that they've done a bad job of the manifesto, if that's what you believe.
I am, but I cannot be pleased that one of the senior leaders of this country, who's the PM candidate of the BJP, basically is so arrogant that he will not share the details of his agenda with us, and he says, just trust me and vote for me. What Mr. Goyal has said today, I'm sorry to say, no, please let me finish. Mr. Goyal has basically essentially created a lot of uncertainty today, I think, by his comments about lots of different things on FDI and multi-brand retail, on this thing and that thing. When the finance minister comes in, we'll see this is creating more uncertainty, and I'm sure their supporters are very, very unhappy today.
All right, Salman sirs, we're completely out of time. Mohandas Pai, quick wrap-up comments from you.
I think the manifesto is a refreshing departure from what BJP used to do. Very broad-based principles, many good areas, center-state relationship, and incentivizing labor-intensive industry, the focus on jobs, etc. But they're not given hard numbers, they're not given hard details, very general. But I think they're going in the right direction, and hopefully they'll be fiscally conservative. So we see from the Congress, which is profligate, to a party which is conservative. So I think that's a good news.
All right, Vinayak Chatterjee, 10 seconds.
Yes, I like many points in the infrastructure agenda, the focus on rail, the focus on transportation, the focus on groundwater management, etc., the land use authority. These are very good points, and there are many of them. My only two reservations is that the power sector is very short on practical ideas and full of motherhood statements, and the fact that 100 new cities is too visionary to be considered practical by most voters in the country. That's it.
All right, Samiran, 10 seconds to you.
The new idea that I like is the center-state relationship being completely reworked. Otherwise, I think it is not the time for new ideas, it's the time for implementation. So the markets will look beyond the promises of the manifestos into actual hard numbers in how much time a BJP government will be able to get India back to a much higher growth path with lower inflation.
Sanjay Dutt, 10 seconds to you.
I think the manifestos got nothing exciting barring the center-state issue, what Samiran mentioned. I think one important point that we missed out, there's a lot of focus on e-governance and use of technology and a lot of, government interface with technology, etc. That's very positive. But otherwise, I maintain my statement, long Modi, short the manifesto. I think the manifesto is not worth reading, really.
All right, Sudhir Kapadia, the final 10 seconds with you.
I think what is very positive is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, tax policy finds a prominent place in the manifesto. The fact that, there is a recognition that there is a sort of tyranny unleashed against the taxpayers, and although very uncelebrated, the fact that you need to drastically improve tax administration. I'll take Mr. Goyal's words on face value that, this party is known for better implementation, and we do hope that if they do come to power, we'll see a tremendous sea change in the tax administration.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on this special to discuss and decode the promises made by the BJP. Piyush Goyal, thank you very much for taking all of our questions and for providing some clarifications which may have led in fact to more uncertainty as far as sentiment is concerned, but nevertheless appreciate you all joining us here on the CNBC TV 18 special. Thanks very much.